Hello, Commander community. It's the most wonderful time of the year. And of course, I have to be sick, so if I sound like butt, that I blame the head cold. Anyway, I'm Paul the Commander Theorist, and today I want to take a look at the spoilers for Commander 2018 that have finally whet my appetite for Commander. Now, do note that I will not be talking about the leaked cards that of course had to happen. Shame on whoever leaked them, but instead I will be only talking about the new cards that have already been previewed by their respected previewers. Anyway, if you enjoyed videos like this, tap that like button. So to start off, I want to touch upon the first spoiler that I had seen, the Geode Golem. This 5-drop artifact creature, 5/3, has trample, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you can then cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. One stipulation, you must still pay any additional costs such as the commander tax and any other tax that may be active. This is really interesting, as we have yet another interaction introduced that messes with the command zone. This works really great for high-costed commanders like Progenitus that might not otherwise be playable after the first few times. I would say any deck that runs a commander with a converted cost of 6 or higher should consider running this as a backup plan. The upside to this card is even greater, as it's a colorless creature, allowing it to be played in any deck. Next is Coveted Jewel, another artifact. This 6-drop allows you to draw 3 cards upon it hitting the battlefield, and it can tap for 3 mana of any one color. Seems rather nice, a bit of a better Gilded Lotus, but it has one more ability. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls come at you and those creatures aren't blocked, that player gets to draw 3 cards and snatches up the jewel for themselves. This is an interesting interaction. I know in Commander, table politics are a really big part of the game, and adding an element of stealing a valuable permanent like this gives it a really fun twist. I liken this to the Monarchy mechanic, adding something of value to a player that others can steal by attacking. Definitely going to consider running this in some of my more political decks. The next card we will discuss is Saheeli's Directive. This spell is improvised, which means your artifacts can be tapped to pay 1 mana each, and the spell itself costs 3 red and then X. You reveal the top X cards of your library, and you can cast any artifacts among them that cost X or less for free, and everything else is ditched to a graveyard. So basically it's a color-shifted Genesis wave for artifacts. I like this, as I imagine artifacts can manage to ramp enough to drop a lot more artifacts into play with this, making it quite the bomb card. I'm a little curious how this will work with Duretti, as you can easily use it to drop something big into the graveyard to recur later on with Duretti. Enchanter's Bane is our next card, and it's a 2-drop enchantment in red, which is different, that it causes target enchantment to deal damage equal to its CMC to its controller unless that player sacrifices it. Yes, yes, and more yes. This is the perfect way for red to handle enchantments. Before this, red really didn't have a way outside of, I don't know, Chaos Warp to handle enchantments. Now, it has a way to force opponents to get rid of their enchantments. It might be a bit slow, only triggering on the end step of your turns, and an opponent might be willing to brave the damage, but it can still do quite a bit. Next is a card I really like, the Vedalken Humiliator. This 3/4 creature has Metalcraft, so if you control 3 or more artifacts, when it attacks, creatures your opponents control become vanilla 1/1s. I liken this to Sudden Spoiling, except it's blue and it triggers only upon attack. This is a really nice way to deal with opponents' board states when you attack, as it can be potent to ruin their blockers. Treasure Nabber is a hilarious 3/2 goblin that lets you steal any artifact that's tapped for mana. It seems simple enough, and the artwork very blatantly screams, "All your soul rings belong to us." And this can get very nasty with Mycosynth Lattice, giving you all of your opponents' lands. Teehee! Bruticlad Telcor Engineer, that's a name, is a 4/4 Artificer legend for 4 and Izzet. Creature tokens you control have haste, and at the beginning of your combat you create a 2/1 blue mirror. You can then choose a token you control to have all your tokens become copies of that token. So I like this. Izzet colors haven't exactly been known for their token strategies, a theme more at home in Selesnya. This is a new tactic that the color combination hasn't explored yet, one that I am actually interested to see what comes of it. A lot of people have mentioned a mirror tribal commander that's possible now with Brutaclad, and I'd be interested to try. This also certainly works well with Mirror Battlesphere, giving all of those mirror tokens haste and possibly turning the tokens into 2/1s. Echo Storm is next, and it reminds me of a bit of a weird take on the Storm mechanic. Cards with Storm copy themselves for each spell that were cast before it that turn. Echo Storm copies itself for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone. We then create a copy of target artifact. Again, another interaction with the command zone, and one that can potentially get out of hand quickly. That jewel we mentioned earlier, how about we make a few copies of it? We get draw cards for each, and we get a ton of ramp, and if an opponent tries to steal it, well, they get all our jewels. Tawnos, Urza's Apprentice, is a 2-mana 1/3 with haste. You can then pay a blue and a red to copy a target activated or triggered ability from an artifact source you control. This certainly seems interesting. We can't quite copy mana producing abilities, darn, but we could certainly copy some of our powerful effects, such as the triggers off of some of the swords of X and Y. Varchild, Betrayer of Keldor, is a 3/3 human knight. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player then gets to create the same amount of 1/1 survivor creature tokens. Survivors can't block, they cannot attack you or your planeswalkers, so they'll have to attack other players. And should Varchild leave the battlefield, such as destroying her or being blinked through something like Conjurer's Closet, you then gain control of all survivors. So, this is a really interesting way to create creature tokens. Your opponents will then get creature tokens that are harmless towards you, and yet should she be removed from the field, even briefly, you get them all. So this can be really powerful to give tons of tokens around the board, playing the political game, and then threaten to have her leave the field to snatch up all the survivors under your control. I like that there seems to be an underlying theme of things changing hands throughout this set. The Forge of Heroes is a land that can produce a colorless mana. It also can give a counter to your commander, whether it's a +1/+1 counter for creatures or an additional loyalty counter for planeswalkers. This is intense value, as it costs nothing to get the counter. Just tap it. It does not enter tapped, and it can be in any deck. I love this card. I'm definitely going to be running this. Loyal Drake marks the return of Lieutenant as a keyword ability, at least for one deck, giving you a card draw if you control your commander at the beginning of combat. It's a nice little bit of value, although I feel like there are better card draw engines for commander. Still, it's not bad for a 3-drop. Now then, we actually did get one of the cover cards spoiled, Saheeli the Gifted. She's a 4 loyalty Izzet planeswalker for 4 mana. She can +1 to create a 1/1 servo token. She can also +1 to cheapen the cost of the next spell you cast by 1 for each artifact you control as it's being cast. She also can -7 to make a copy of each artifact you control, give them haste, though they are exiled at the end step. She can also be your commander, so a lot of stuff is happening here. As you can see, planeswalkers as commanders have returned again, this time in multicolor modes. I personally feel that Saheeli works rather nicely as an artifact commander, somewhat surprised to see that she made another appearance as a planeswalker and as a commander candidate. She definitely has a lot of strength in her +1 abilities, as I always value planeswalkers who can defend themselves with creatures. She also synergizes really well with artifacts. Her other +1 does not limit you to just artifact spells. You can use any kind of spell to cheapen. What's more, she actually costs a pretty decent amount for what she does. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you may notice I tend to really dislike high-costed commanders. You only really get to play them once or twice if you're lucky, and after that they become too expensive. I am very excited to see the return of planeswalkers as commanders, as these are a really interesting take on building a commander deck. And so this is just day 1 of the Commander 2018 previews. What do you think of all the cards that we've seen so far? There's a lot of cards to cover, and I'd really like to take a look at all of the new cards, and possibly touch upon any notable reprints we may see along the way. Remember to like this video to let others know it's worth a watch, subscribe with notifications turned on to keep up to date with all future videos, and as always, I will see all you guys, gals, and non-binary pals in the next video.